Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Learning Biology with Dr. Vanessa, where I take difficult biological concepts and make them easy to understand. In today's video, we will be taking a look at muscle tissue, looking at the different types of muscle tissue, where we find them, and what they do. We will end by looking at the functions and properties of muscular tissue. At this point, you have already learned about the bones of the skeleton and the joints between them, so it's logical that we next consider the muscles which make movement possible. But muscles don't just move our skeleton, they also pump blood, move food through the digestive tract, and even help us maintain body temperature. Let's start by looking at the three different types of muscle tissue and what makes each one of them unique. The three types of muscle include skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and smooth muscle. The main focus of this video will be skeletal muscle. However, on the next slides, we'll take a closer look at all three muscle types, where they're found, and what they look like. Let's start by first discussing skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle, just like its name implies, is the muscle attached to our bones. It is used so that we can control the movement of the bones of the skeleton. This muscle is under voluntary control, meaning we consciously move it except under certain circumstances like reflexes. Cardiac muscle is an involuntary muscle, which means we don't consciously control our heartbeat. This muscle is found in the walls of the heart and is used for contraction so that blood can be pumped through the heart and delivered to the body. Smooth muscle is found in the walls of hollow organs, like the digestive tract, blood vessels, and the bladder. Smooth muscle, like cardiac muscle, is also involuntary. They contract more slowly, but can sustain contraction longer than skeletal muscle. Let's take a closer look at these muscle types and discuss what they look like underneath the microscope, again starting with skeletal muscle. Under the microscope, skeletal muscle looks striated. That is, it has a banded appearance. The muscle fibers or muscle cells of skeletal muscle are very long. They are also multinucleated, which means that they have many nuclei in each cell. This helps to support rapid and forceful contractions. Cardiac muscle and skeletal muscle are similar in how they work, and therefore cardiac muscle is also striated. Cardiac muscle fibers are uninucleate, meaning they only have one nucleus per cell, and they are branched. Between each cardiac muscle cell are really dark lines, which are called intercalated discs. This is very characteristic of cardiac muscle cells since we only find them here. These are areas that stain darker because of the desmosomes between the cells, which help to keep those cardiac muscle cells together every time the heart contracts. Smooth muscle does not have the striations that you see in skeletal and cardiac muscles, which is why smooth muscle gets its name. The contraction of smooth muscle is different than the contraction of both cardiac and skeletal muscle, which is why its appearance is also different. Smooth muscle contracts in a wave-like motion for mixing and moving things through the digestive system. Smooth muscle cells are spindle-shaped with a single nucleus. Okay, so let's recap on what distinguishes each muscle type histologically from one another. Cardiac and skeletal muscle both have striations, so that's not really a distinguishing characteristic. Distinguishing characteristics would include that skeletal muscle is multinucleated, while cardiac muscle is uninucleated. Cardiac muscle also uniquely has intercalated discs and branching of the cells. Smooth muscle, on the other hand, again is smooth, and it does not have striations. It is also uninucleate, and the muscle cells themselves stack on top of one another, so they have a very different makeup and appearance than we see in both skeletal and cardiac muscle tissue. Let's talk about the functions of muscular tissue. One of the functions of muscular tissue is producing body movements. Skeletal muscle allows us to move from place to place, move different parts of the body, and allows us to breathe. If we're talking about cardiac muscle, we can talk about how the heart pumps blood to deliver oxygen and nutrients all over the body. And smooth muscle allows us to digest, defecate, urinate, and even give birth. We use our muscles for so many things, even communication. The fact that you can move your mouth to form speech to the point that you are writing and taking down notes. All of these different types of communication are going to be assisted by the use of various muscles. Muscular tissue also allows us to stabilize our body positions. Muscle stability is very important. The muscles have the ability to maintain posture by preventing unwanted movements. There are also anti-gravity muscles that help us to resist the pull of gravity and prevent us from falling or slumping over, and muscles also help to stabilize joints. Muscles also participate in storing and moving substances within the body, or we can lump that with controlling, opening, and passageways. Muscles can control opening and passageways, and we see this when things are moving through the body. There are muscles that form, which are called sphincters, and these sphincters usually have a voluntary skeletal muscle and an involuntary smooth muscle associated with them. It just depends on where they are, but these sphincters are going to control the opening, so they are going to allow things to pass from one place to another. These are internal muscular rings, and they help to control the movement of food, bile, blood, and other materials. Muscular tissue also allows us to generate heat. When muscles contract, they generate heat through a process called thermogenesis. When we are cold and the muscles shiver, this can create as much as 85% of our body heat. This allows for heat to be created in order to warm us up, acting as a negative feedback system and maintaining body temperature. Let's move on to the properties of muscle. First up is electrical excitability. This is the ability of muscle cells to respond to certain stimuli by producing electrical signals called action potentials. Action potentials are how muscles receive their signal to contract, and we'll talk more about them in detail in a later video. This property is pretty unique. Besides nervous tissue, most cells in the body simply aren't electrically excitable. This means that they can't generate action potentials, but muscles can. And that's what allows thousands, even millions of muscle fibers to contract in a coordinated way. Next, we have contractility. This is the ability of muscle tissue to shorten forcefully when stimulated by an action potential. That shortening is what actually pulls on bones, moves food through the digestive tract, or squeezes the heart to pump blood. And just as importantly, when the stimulation ends, muscle cells can relax and return to their resting state. This ability to contract and then let go is the foundation of everything muscle tissue does. Another important property of muscle is extensibility. This is the ability of muscle tissue to stretch within limits without being damaged. All muscle types have this property, but smooth muscle shows it most dramatically. Think about what happens after you eat a big meal. Your stomach has to stretch and expand to accommodate the food. The same thing happens in your intestines as they adjust to the movement of material. So while skeletal and cardiac muscle do have some extensibility, smooth muscle really takes the lead here, allowing our organs to adapt to changes in volume and function. And finally, we have elasticity. After a muscle has been stretched or contracted, elasticity is what allows it to snap back to its original length and shape. Think about stretching a rubber band. It lengthens when pulled, but springs back when released. Muscle tissue works in much the same way, though in a much more controlled fashion. So muscles are more than just engines for movement. They stabilize us, move food and blood, and even help keep us warm. Now that you understand the types of muscle tissue and their major functions, in the next video, we'll take a closer look at how muscles come together and the connective tissues that support and surround them. If you enjoyed the content of this video, please make sure to subscribe Give this video a like and turn on notifications so that you never miss out on new content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.